As a freshman, sizing up EGHS was no easy task, and Mr. Brocato's English 117 class didn't make things any easier. I decided to take myself to Quinessa Country Club to reflect on this year's English class. Let's start at the beginning. At the beginning of this past year, I thought I had all the tools for success. I had my driver, my irons, and my putter. I quickly learned that it's not the tools, it's the person behind the tools. My first approach at quarter one was to take my driver and swing as hard as I could, but it didn't end up so well. However, when you fall down, you have to pick yourself back up. That's exactly what I did, but what do you know? I whiffed again. My old antics of waiting until the last minute to slap it together just weren't going to cut it for Mr. Brocato. So who do you go to when you have a problem? When you scrape your knee or you're hungry? You go to your mom, and that's what I did. I asked her for help. I wrote up my narrative and asked her to look over it. Her being a journalist, she instantly went to work. And you know what happened? I got a 75. Now, it wasn't my mom's fault. I just had no story to begin with. I could fix every grammar mistake, change any vocab word I wanted, but if I didn't have a story, why was I writing in the first place? Let's get back to Quinessa. I knew that if I was going to be successful, I needed to dial it down a little bit. I needed a more conservative approach, so I switched over to my irons. Early on in quarter two, I felt like I knocked it out of the park. The You're Not Special essay was a big turning point for me. I finally knew that it was possible to get a top-notch grade. However, this early success was misleading. Towards the end, I started to butcher everything, screwing up quizzes, barely participating, and botching the Julius Caesar test. Surprisingly, the one thing that saved the second quarter was my portfolio. I even pushed myself to cash in on the early portfolio finish. At this point in the year, we were halfway there. We got our first taste of midterms and a first-hand account at life in the big leagues. But as you know, third quarter always seems like the longest quarter. For me, third quarter seemed as if it would never end. It was like an endless vortex of poem and repeat, and by no means were those poems any good. At any one time when it seemed as if I had found some sort of voice, I would be pushed even further away, just like this State Farm commercial.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
I'm just going to be flat out honest here. I never came close to having it. I hated poetry, and with a passion. I hated poetry so much that I probably should have written a poem about how much I hated poetry. And, as you can see in these videos, it was because I could never sink a shot. I didn't even really come close. To make matters worse, we lost our fearless leader in the midst of a third quarter. While change can be good, forced change is bad. Exasperating this problem was the fact that our new student teacher, Mr. Barone, was teaching yet another poem. This epic poem was not so epic for me. In the past, I had always been intrigued by Greek mythology stories. I found myself immersed in the Percy Jackson books, and I was always waiting for Rick Riordan to release his next chapter in the series. However, the poetry aspect to the Iliad brought on a negative connotation for me. What used to be short, 12-line poems suddenly turned into one huge book of them, a book that I was now responsible for. Sure, the content was easy enough to grasp, with a few spark notes, but my whole attitude about the Iliad was tainted from the very beginning. Going into this past fourth quarter, I felt burnt out. Countless days of cross-country, track, and ultimate had worn me down. I just put my portfolio to the side and took a little rest. However, the research project snuck up on me. It felt like a relief to finally get that weight off my shoulders, but I had a new weight, the fourth quarter's portfolio. The dreadful last one that I had put aside is suddenly due this week. Before I say anything else, take a look at this clip.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
4 quarters of English 117 with Brock, and this is what I get out of it. I know, but let me make my case. Before this year in Honors English, I found myself in a safe bubble. I wasn't pushed out of my comfort zone, and I certainly wasn't challenged in middle school. Coming to high school wasn't that big of a shock, besides English. I could handle the classwork, minus poems, But it was the portfolio, the writing. I absolutely, positively hated writing. I couldn't handle the truth. However, I noticed something over this year. If I could find a topic that I liked to write about, trashing on Roger Goodell was a favorite of mine, I could write. I could write for days about how bad of a man he is. I could pull up numbers. I could do anything about Roger Goodell. But if I was forced to read and write some stupid lines of poetry, I was lost. I'd like to finish where I started, back at Knesset. This year has taught me many things, but the most important was to take my time. Although I've been told this countless instances before, I finally realized its implications. Here on the putting green, I need to stay focused and take my time. Next year I want to set out for bigger aspirations and control what I do in the English classroom. Thanks, Brock, for an amazing year, and here's what a pro golfer actually looks like.
There he is at 2.
He cut that in over the water with a 3-wood.
And really not much margin for error there, just barely cleared what he needed to clear, and then that rolls up close to the hole. Draws a smile. That resulted in an eagle. Here he is for birdie at the 5th to get it to 10 under.
That's where he's really excelled, is around the greens, like a shot like this. This wasn't easy, and he went low and let it roll out. At the 6th.
Rattled the flagstick as he did often today.